Welcome to the island of Tanzia, a place considered uncultured by many. However, the inhabitants here have actually got quite the history of magic. In Tanzia, you play the role of a young shaman, a descendant of a great warrior of the Akazi people who vanquished evil and saved the world from the Skeleton King. I'm Wise, aka Thomas, and this is my first impressions review of Tanzia, a game that's currently in beta by Arcanity Inc., coming to Steam in 2017. Hey guys, I'm Thomas from wisegamer.com, and this is Tanzia. The story of Tanzia is that you are a descendant of a mighty warrior who saved the island from the evil Skeleton King many years ago. Now, the Skeleton King actually was never killed himself, he was just defeated in his armies, and he ran away into hiding, never to be seen again. Now that you've grown up, however, you must master the shaman ways of Arcanity, which is basically magical spells, to once again save the island from this evil Skeleton King who's returned. With a team that's worked on titles such as EverQuest, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Neverwinter Nights, Command & Conquer, and many other AAA games, I really expected greatness, and honestly, I have to say that the team delivered so far. My version of the game's still in beta, and many things were placeholders with audio cues, some of the graphics and things like that, so there's areas that still need to be worked on, but what I saw is a great backstory with a lot of lore, purpose, well-rounded characters, and some really great voice acting so far during the cutscenes. Moving into the gameplay, Tanzia is very much an old school style action RPG. You basically spend your time with quests, running from one area to another, killing random mobs along the way, and you hit that counter of collecting X items from Y mobs or talking to this NPC just to run back to the original NPC. To me, it really reminded me of early vanilla World of Warcraft back when WoW first came out, and it was kind of nostalgic for me because I played WoW, way when it first came back out there, and as a gamer it was nice to see that, but I've also kind of evolved my interests and personality a little bit personally to where I'm a little bit tired of this style. I kind of get tired of the I don't know, a lot of people use the term walking simulator of just constantly walking back and forth. So for me, it was a little bit tough to get into. However, it doesn't mean that it's a bad game by anything like that. It's just my personal taste has evolved a little bit to where I don't care for this style as much. But again, I'm trying to give a fair review for the game. So I just didn't care for as much running around I had to, I guess. But to give some credit to the developers as well, Tanzia does try to mitigate some of those issues as far as running back and forth constantly. So, for example, there's an early quest where you have to collect 10 boar poop. So it's, literally, okay, let's run out to this area, let's collect the poop and kill any mobs that aggro me while I'm here, and then I'm just going to run back to the quest giver. Or collect so many feathers and so many flowers and then run back to the quest giver. So to mitigate some of that, there is a fast travel mechanic they included where you can kind of travel between these different little rock formation type things, and there's also speed potions that are in there as well. So the speed potions allow you to travel at probably about 1.5 speed, so it's a lot faster to move around, and you get frequent save areas and things like that too. So it does mitigate it some. It doesn't make it as bad as some of the early days of World of Warcraft where you have no mount or anything, you're just running around everywhere on foot. But at the same time, again, my tastes personally have evolved a little bit, so this was a little bit tedious. Now, speaking of save locations, so you can only save at these various totems that are around the land. Those also act as your healing and mana regeneration totems. So unfortunately for me, the developers decided that they don't want to allow you to regen any health or mana unless you're next to one of these totems. So that literally means that when you're in combat, you can't regen, which is normal for an RPG. But after combat, instead of being able to sit and regen slowly, or in WoW you would drink water or something like that, you can't do that in this. You actually have to run back to a totem every single time you deplete your mana pool to be able to regen. Now, as you rank up and get a higher level, you'll have a higher mana pool, of course, and you become more efficient with spells. They do more damage and things like that too. So you don't necessarily get stuck constantly running back to totems, but really, in games like this, you have spawn rates that come up, and if you're trying to clear out an area of mobs, you might kill 1 or 2 of them in the beginning, have to run back to a totem, wait, run back out, kill a couple of them, run back. And that back and forth nature was quite tedious for me, and I told the developers, personally I didn't like it. Some people did some really early alpha reviews of this about a year ago. They had the same complaint. The developers personally said that they think that it adds more tension to the battles, that you have to pick your fights, you only want to pull 1 or 2 mobs at a time rather than aggravate a huge group and just being able to burn them down. Now the other way to mitigate this is you can carry mana potions on you. So basically what I did is every time I had spare money at all, I would just fill up with as many mana potions as I possibly could, and that way when I ran out in combat I didn't have to constantly go back to town for a totem or to the closest save point area, something like that. So again, they said that basically they thought the choice was here through their own playtesting that They thought it adds tension into the battle. Personally, again, I don't like the mechanic. It was kind of a hassle for me, but I can see the vision that the developers had here. So really outside of those things, it's pretty much a typical RPG. You travel in somewhat of a linear storyline with some side quests here and there from each area. You kill the mob, collect the items, turn in the quest, gain XP, visit different trainers to learn new spells, buy new gear, restock your potions. There's a minimal crafting system that kind of allows you to craft your own potions through alchemy. So you can buy recipes for different potions rather than having to constantly buy them, and it's cheaper obviously to collect ingredients and be able to do it that way instead. There's also a socketing system with different gems that you can get into. I personally didn't get any gems while I was playing in the few hours that I put into it, but you open up a mechanic for a workshop basically, and you can socket your items, and that will be able to modify your gear for you as well. So really for me, in the gameplay, it wasn't bad by any means. It's just something that I've evolved my taste a little bit within RPGs, so I know some people will absolutely love it. For me personally, it was a little bit grindy. Now, moving into more of a positive note for me, visually the game is just beautiful. The graphics aren't completely modern. I mean, it's not going to be, super high polygon count type thing that you'll see, but it's really more of an early World of Warcraft style / like comic book influence. The cutscenes have some fantastic artwork that I absolutely loved. I mean, just something about it spoke to me really well. It's not like N64, maybe like PS2 era type graphics, I guess. That's probably the best way to describe it. But really, I mean, it's pretty beautiful. Again, the artwork and the cutscenes with that kind of comic book feel, but also a little bit of cel shading type style. It's just really, really gorgeous to me. The world is obviously still a work in progress, being that this is a beta, but I did find things like the water effects to be just gorgeous and beautiful. You know, anytime I casted a spell, the particle effects were great, and it was kind of fun being able to see like the spell arc over and, you know, hit an enemy and just kind of explode and things like that. Personally, I didn't have any issues here with the graphics. The gameplay was smooth. You know, I never saw any stuttering on performance, you know, even while kiting probably 15 different birds at one time or something like that to group them up for a giant fireball kill. Didn't have any problems at all. It was pretty great. Now, moving into the audio, the game has some great things going for it here as well. Tanzia's voice acting and the cutscenes is absolutely spectacular in my opinion. Something about it just really spoke to me, and it felt real for the world and the theme within the game. You know, the actors did a great job of kind of having this persona about them that really put them into the game. Now, unfortunately, as of the build that I played, there's no voice acting within the gameplay itself, outside of these little cutscenes and things like that. So the quest givers all have text dialogues, and some of it was quite lengthy to read. You know, it's not a big deal, really. It's just kind of me turned into a lazy gamer because a lot of bigger titles have voice acting everywhere nowadays. But really, I mean, you see this a lot in indie games. You see a lot of text because having a voice actor for every one of your NPCs, especially in an RPG, that's a very big financial risk to, you know, invest and not know if you're going to get too much back from it. So really, it's not so much of a negative, just an area to discuss. If there's no voice acting within the game currently, we'll see if that changes in the future. Now, the soundtrack for the game, it's actually pretty good. As you move into each area, there's like a new background track that'll play and kind of welcomes you to the new area, and really it's pretty nice. They all have their own little bit of uniqueness to them, and they stood out to me, and they were really pleasant to listen to. There was sometimes I felt the audio may have maybe died out or got really quiet, but that was more of like I was in an area for so long, the track didn't loop or repeat again, and I think that's more of it just being in the beta build, because I was told, again, you know, in beta, the audio cues and triggers aren't all fully implemented yet, so that's probably just something that's in my build. I don't think it's going to affect the final game. So if you guys have seen any of my other reviews, you know I always discuss replayability. And I think it would be more fair in this case to discuss the length of the game rather than trying to talk about replayability. Both, you know, because this is in beta, it's an early impression, and I didn't beat the game yet, so it's hard to talk about. I did ask the developers how long they think it's going to take to complete the game. They said with their own playtesting, they know exactly what to do to get through it as fast as possible, so they're getting through fast, but they're expecting players to get through in an average between 8 to 10 hours. That'll include basically the full main quest line, and that depends obviously on how much you go off and kind of grind on mobs or how much time you spend doing side quests, gathering, things like that as well. But 8 to 10 hours is about what you can expect here. Now the price is still determined as well. They don't have anything set yet, or at least nothing that's been released to me, so I can't really speak too much on the value that you actually get from the gameplay for how many hours you get for the price that you pay. So I do know as far as replayability in a general sense, I think for me, once I finish the storyline, I'll be done. From what I've seen, there isn't any special specific mechanic that's going to have me come back to the game over and over again. I personally am not the achievement hunter that goes on 100% things usually, so I'll probably pick up side quests as I go through. I'll complete those if I can, if it's something not too tedious, then maybe I'll go ahead and do it, or if there's a quest reward I really want. But otherwise, I'm kind of curious if the developers will add anything in the future that might add a reason to come back for multiple playthroughs. In the current build, again, as it is right now, I personally don't see a specific reason for me to want to go through and try to play it through another time, I guess, if that makes sense. So overall, just kind of wrapping everything up, Tanzia really does seem to be the typical action RPG that we used to know from a few years back. For me, someone that is not so much of a fan of action RPGs anymore, not in that old sense like I used to be, I did find some nostalgia in the title, but the stereotypical running from NPC to NPC for the various quest items, or killing just a big group of mobs over and over again until you get enough of the collectible that you need, it was a little bit tedious. That's very much the style of RPGs though, and very much a thing that happens in quite a few RPGs, so I know people will like the game. Just for me, it wasn't as enjoyable just because my tastes have changed some. The inability to regen mana or health unless you're within the aura of the totem was pretty much a big pain point for me. Again, as I mentioned before, I understand the developer's desire to cause you to be more cautious and feel the tension of engaging large groups without having rest in between. But it really, as a game that already has you traveling back and forth a lot, having to do this again to totems or just have to have a crap load of mana potions on you, it just felt a little bit tedious to me. Now, the game was originally set to come out in late 2016, but it's been delayed to 2017, and there's no set time that it's going to be coming out now. So I really hope that there are some improvements in these few areas I had concerns with, and I'm really excited to see what happens in the final build. Outside of those though, the gameplay's smooth, the visuals are amazing, the voice acting, when it is present, is pretty good. And I truly do think that the team at Arcanity Inc. is on the right track here. I think there's going to be an audience that's going to enjoy the game quite a bit, and really, again, just because it's not necessarily my personal taste, it doesn't mean that it's a bad game by any means. So again, guys, I've been Wise, aka Thomas. Thanks again for watching my first impression review of Tanzia. I'll have all the relevant links in the description below, including a link to my playlist of all my other game reviews, so make sure you check those out as well. Thanks, we'll see you next time.